Hey everyone, John Henry here from School of Trade, and today we're going to be taking a look at a supply and demand reversal out of crude oil. So we've come up into this supply zone on crude oil, and this supply zone was actually created a really long time ago. This was back on the 3rd already, so almost a month in the making for this supply zone to be hanging in here. The supply zone is between 41 up to, 51 at the highs. So what we're looking to do here, first of all, there's a couple things that you could do. First of all, you could just look for candlestick confirmation and take a pattern short for a little bit of a longer time frame sort of trade. We're going to be holding it for a few hours. In this case, we're looking to use our wave patterns in conjunction with this move down and look for a wave rejection out of this area. So right now, you can see on our entry chart here on the 3JJ bar, we've come up into the area and you can see it's been really, really rocky. As soon as we started entering the area, it dropped back, went up, dropped back, went up, dropped back down again. Every time it tests this area, it pushes back down. And that's pretty common to see with these supply zones that have been hanging around for a really long time. They usually act relatively strongly in terms of being supported or resisted in specific areas. So what we're looking to do is just a typical wave pattern, looking for a cross down, preferably getting under this BMT right here at 95.30, looking for a retracement in this case to get us into a short position and then take this right back down again. Now what I would really like to see is us to get underneath this 95.30 first before we start looking for the short position, and preferably not touch this 95.18. It would be nice if it comes close, but usually what we see is when we break through one of the BMTs but don't quite test that next one, it'll usually act as a magnet when it starts coming back through. The BMTs are really strong averages, and what happens is if it doesn't test it, these orders start getting piled up and stacked and stacked and stacked, and so you've got thousands and thousands of orders, maybe not that much on crude oil, but you've got boatloads of orders sitting in one place, and it's just going to suck the market back down again. So what we want to do here is look for a wave pattern short. So we've got a swing high at 95.42, and now we just got our signal reset. So now not only are we coming out of a supply zone, we have a 1, 2, 3 reversal pattern, a very, very strong pattern to be looking for to the downside. Now, this is exactly what I did want to see. We cracked underneath this BMT here. And hopefully we don't go too much lower here. I don't want to test this BMT down here. If we do test this second BMT, we're going to need to wait for another pull and then come back down again underneath it. But for now, what we can do is we're just going to look to hop into an order here. 95.31 is the sell order. You could go to 32, but this is an aggressive move. I want to get in a little bit ahead of the crowd. Just to kind of get maybe a little bit of a better position. You can see right now this is still technically counter trend, right? You've got the trend filter right here that's showing us that we still kind of have a long bias. But that's more kind of short term. You can see it's sort of starting to flatten out, right? It's not like it was angled in a 45 degree. Now you're looking at closer to almost flat now. So we can see that it's starting to shift here. And because we're coming out of a supply zone, this is looking like it should be a pretty solid pattern to at least get our first couple targets filled. So looking short at 95.31. Could do 95.32 as well, 95.30 in that area, all the way up to 95.34 looking to sell. Now, alternatively, you could also wait for a reversal bar confirmation and hop in short after that happens as well. But we already know we're coming out of a pretty strong area of resistance here. So waiting for a fill up to 95.31. The target's going to be down at right around 95.19 or so. We got to be careful around this BMT down here, and we're going to want to take our profit a little bit ahead of it, so maybe 95.21. Depends on where it is at the time. So we'll be back once we get our fill, and we'll see how we do. All right, so we just got our fill. We're using the standard five tick stop, if I can speak. So we got short at 95.31. So far, I've only taken one tick of heat. Still waiting to get down to the 22 here. But the nice thing about this position is, we're only risking 5 ticks. Because the BMT is sort of in our way, we did have to ratchet up the target just a little bit. So in this case, our initial risk is 5 ticks for an overall target to the downside of 11. So still a little better than 2 to 1. With a 5 tick stop, it's really hard to complain with pretty much any setup you get. It would be nice to have this go a little bit further, but because we're trading one contract today, we're looking at a little bit of a faster profit target ahead of this BMT. Now, typically we see a bounce at this BMT, and this is what we were talking about. I want to see this act as a magnet. You know, you're starting to get lots and lots of orders stacked up in that area because it came close. You know, people are starting to kind of get their mouth to drool a little bit over that area. So typically it's going to pull the market down into it to fill those orders and then bounce higher. So we're looking at our target off at 95.20. Short from 95.31, our stop is at 95.36. When we get one tick away, actually in this case, because it's a little bit closer, once we get to 95.21, our stop will move to break even automatically, and then hopefully we'll get the target filled down at 95.20. So we'll come back with the final result. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so we just came down, barely even needed to pause the video really, but we came down, filled our target, no problem. Now we're right on top of that BMT, and this is where it's going to get kind of ugly. We're probably going to chop around in this area. If we do end up breaking through, it's probably not going to be for a little bit. And you can see this is exactly what we were talking about. We started seeing the trend filter starting to flatten out, and now it's pointing to the downside. So even when our trade was triggered in, you can see when we were filled here at 921, the trend filter right here was starting to turn to red. Granted, it was still pretty flat, but it was still turning to red. And the further and further we fell, the more and more the trend started to shift to the downside. So now that we're getting the bounce off at 95.20 at the BMT, feeling pretty good about taking our profit target there. So 11 ticks, 110 bucks on one contract. Definitely not bad for, let's see, 921 for 3 minutes of work. Pretty hard to argue with that one. So that's going to be the trade for today. If you have any questions about it, feel free to send an email to School of Trade, and don't forget to check out our trial at schooloftrade.com. Have a good one.